I'm really honored that Jim Whiting called me and asked me to introduce Sergio, an old friend. I've known Sergio for many, many years. Our first encounter was in Mexico City in the early 50s, where we were both expatriates. Sergio from Spain and myself from the United States. And we kind of realized we both wanted to be cartoonists and writers, and we hung out a lot together. And then our lives went separate ways. And 10 years later, approximately, I was in New York working for Mad Magazine, and who should I bump into in the corridors but Sergio, who was doing the Marginals, Mad Marginals. One of the reasons being, as explained to me, that his English was not that good. It still isn't that good. And the safest thing for him to do was pantomime. And he did it marvelously, as you all know, classically. And then, maybe a decade later, I came out to California, and I was working on the Laugh-In, and there was Sergio working for the same producer on a different show, doing little animated segments for was it Real People or something?
It's a Wacky World.
Wacky World, yeah. Just excellent work. And I'm trying to remember the chronology. And then again, our lives went separate ways, and I ended up in Solana Beach here many years later, and Jim called me and said, would you introduce Sergio, who's going to be here? And I said, sure, I'd be thrilled to. But I just want to say personally to Sergio, stop following me around. You're becoming a pain in the ass. Quit it already. Enough's enough. Anyway, he's a remarkably talented man. I mean, we were all familiar with his work, but he's an accomplished scuba diver and a mime. Studied mime when I first met him. He's an actor. He's a writer. He's a brilliant cartoonist, caricaturist, needlepoint. Anything you want. He's like a man for all seasons. I'm really proud to be here, and best of all, he's a very, very good friend. My only regret tonight is that Charlene, his lovely wife, isn't here with him for two reasons. One, I would love to have a chance to say hello to her after all these years. And second, I would love to pull her aside and ask her privately why Sergio is known as the fastest pencil in the West.
Hello. We know each other for many years already, many of you, and so if you don't understand what I'm saying, please ask Jack. I have to tell you a story about Jack also. In New York, he called me. He says, I was living in New York, and so he was living in New York. And I always wanted to be a member of the National Cartoonists Society, but I thought I didn't deserve it. I thought it was all these incredible people I grew up with. And Jack one day says, hey, we have a meeting, why you don't come? He says, well, I cannot be there, with all these great cartoonists. He says, you're making more money than half of them already. Unpublished, come over. And he introduced me to the National Cartoonists Society. And also, one day he called me and said, Sergio, can you write some storyboards for a show that I'm doing? And I said, sure, because they had to be pantomime. And it was Topo Gigio, a show that he was doing. And says, when you need it? I says, well, I need a Monday, and this is Saturday. So, of course, I sat Saturday and Sunday and wrote 2 little storyboards on the show. No sleep, nothing. I was totally tired. And I bring it to him Monday, so he takes me to meet the producer of the show. And he was this old gentleman, very nice, and I sat there. And he started telling stories about Second World War and everything, and I was so tired that I fell asleep. And suddenly I feel a notch, and it's Jack waking me up. And the guys look at me and says, I know my stories were kind of boring, but I never bore anybody to sleep before. And that happened. He made me work like a slave, you know. And I have tons of stories with him. It's been too many years. The other day, about 2-3 years ago, I was looking at my old photographs of Mexico. And there we are in a cartoon exposition. And I had a beer, also black, with a pipe, and a girl standing up like that. And I was like 20, 22, and there's Jack Mendelsohn behind. Of all things, I had to show you that picture. No, you were holding hands with Rios, I think. No, that's not true. Thank you for having me here. And it's difficult to talk about cartoon to cartoonists. And probably what we do later would be mostly questions and answers, anything you want to know about it. But one thing I wanted to know is that growing up in Mexico and liking cartoons, you always see the United States as a mecca. Because everything that we read in Mexico, besides the good Mexican cartoons, were all the American comic strips and American cartoons. And I used to sneak in it was called the Hotel Genova, because it was the one that had the best magazine racks. And you used to go there with other cartoonists, among them Rios and some other young cartoonists who are now old cartoonists. And we used to wait until the doorman wasn't watching because he didn't like us a bit. Because we'll just go to that place where they had the magazine and we look to Collier's and the Post and Esquire and Paris Match. They have them from all over the world. And I couldn't understand the American cartoons because, or the ones in Punch, because all of them had little lines, gag lines. But I could understand the ones from Europe because they didn't have any words. So from very early age, I thought that pantomime was a great way to communicate. And still, when now I go to high school and I start drawing for the newspaper, and we try to get some money from the magazines. Haha, mañana. And what happened is that the editors were paying reprint money to the syndicates, that they were knocking features. There was a man that at the end, when you try to sell to all the magazines, when you have everything left over, you send it to this man, and this man will still get you money from it, you know, like 50 cents per cartoon. So these publishers in Mexico will buy these cartoons for 50 cents and print them, and they pay us 50 cents for our original cartoons. It says, but ours are original. It says, these ones are original for Mexicans. They don't know. So they haven't seen them, so they're brand new too. So I figured out, well, I'm going to go to the States, get American money, and then sell them to Mexico for 50 cents. That'll teach him a lesson. So I packed my bags, and with no money whatsoever, I went to New York. And my father, being a socialist, or a Spanish man, fought in the Civil War, I thought that it was imperative that I join the Cartoonists Union so I could work. You cannot work if you're not a member of the union. The word union in English is syndicate. So I thought you had to belong to the syndicate to work, you know. So I came with no English whatsoever and go to the syndicate, says, I want to be a member. And here are my cartoons. Not for them to publish or anything. I wanted to have a credential so I could sell cartoons in the States. So I says, well, come next week. Oh, that sure takes time. So meanwhile, I'm working as reciting poetry in the village and doing all kinds of weird jobs. I have stories also to tell you. So I go in a week and says, no, we cannot use you. You know, I mean, first, you have cartoons of every size. Here, you have to draw them up at the same size. Well, when you grow up in Mexico, it really doesn't matter. I mean, you make a cartoon and then you cut what's all left. Why you need it? When you bring it to the magazine, they measure it and they paste it up and that's it. But, so my portfolio was full of cartoons, every size, cardboard, paper, things about everything. So there was no way a syndicate could take that. So they referred me to other syndicates. So I keep going to syndicates, and no one wanted me. And I thought, how can a syndicate? I'm a good cartoonist, not really good, but I'm not bad, I've been working in Mexico, and I know I deserve to be a member of a union, And I was totally free. And by now it's 2 months of working and doing nothing, waiting to be a member, until I go to a party in the village, and I meet Mort Gerbert, which is an excellent cartoonist who works for the New Yorker. So I met Mort, and, oh, you're a cartoonist, very good. And he says, what, have you been selling? He says, no, I cannot sell, I don't have a syndicate card. So, whoa, you're doing something wrong here. So he explained to me the whole thing, and it was like revelation. No, Sergio, por favor. So he explains me what it's all about. That syndicates is just business, that you do strips a week, etc., and that you have to go Wednesdays to the magazines to show you cartoons. And he was like, oh, a deluge of information suddenly like that. And he was starting, he's been working at it a few years, selling a cartoon here and a cartoon there. So now I know, so I take all my ideas and start redraw them in the normal size paper. And I figured out, well, if everybody goes Wednesdays, I'm going to go Tuesdays. I don't know why not. It just made a lot of sense to me. So I went Tuesday, and I went to all the magazines in New York and said, can I see the cartoon editor? And sure. And so I go in and says, I'm from Mexico. Oh, I love Mexico. We're talking about shows. They're very good. And so they bought some and said, well, send again when you're back. Blah, blah. And I met everybody, and next week I went back Tuesday. Again, same thing, and the third week says, are you planning to stay in the States? He says, well, yes. He says, well, come Wednesdays like everybody else. So, but by then, sort of like I have a little edge. I have met the cartoons personally, and I met all the guys, and George Wolfe, and all the other cartoonists who told me where to go and have my drinks, pen and pencil, and I became part of the Wednesdays, but a lot of people said, your cartoons are very crazy, why don't you go to MAD? And MAD, I knew it was a satire magazine, and they were so good that there's no way for me to go to MAD. Because they're going to say no. Because I know what MAD does. And there was no cartoons in MAD. They don't pantomime cartoons, they were not gag cartoons, they were articles. So I went to, it says, what you need also is an agent. So I got to see an agent, his name was Art Paul, an old-timer. And I go to Art Paul, and he lives in Broadway, not the art director from Playboy, but Art Paul, the agent. And these men in pajamas, with a glass of whiskey at 6 o'clock in the morning, is up in this room full of paper and smell and things, And so, let's see, these look like Martians. Where are the gags? I said, that's the gag. I don't see any words. No words. And I'm trying to explain him the jokes. It says, no, look, kid, go back to Mexico. And I remember him sitting there, like crying on his steps, that this is the end, And they sold a few things, but not really nothing. And also I went to Squire, and they liked my ideas, but they want somebody else to draw them. Well, that doesn't happen in Mexico, you are a cartoonist, you draw your stuff. I says, oh, we like your ideas, but we're going to buy just the idea. I said, no, you're not. How can you buy my idea? I didn't know that you could sell ideas to other cartoonists. Well, my first could have been a big sell. It didn't happen because I didn't want to sell just my idea. But I didn't know. So I'm totally desperate, and says, well, I'm going to go to MAD to at least meet them, because I was a fan of MAD in Mexico. I used to go with the MADs to all the guys, I was by then in college. MAD will come out, and I will go to the guys who spoke English, to translate it for me, but they would run away because it was 3 or 4 hours that they had to be my prisoners. And the English was so complicated in math that half of them didn't know how to translate it. So they would, oh no, there comes Sergio with a new math. And it was like such a necessity for them to explain the whole thing. So I knew math wasn't going to take me. So I go to math, and the first thing I ask is for Antonio Proillas, which is the guy who draws Spy vs. Spy. Because I don't know what to say. I barely speak English. And Antonio Proillas, sure. And he was there. He comes out, and I introduce myself, and he calls everybody his brother. Mi hermano, todo lo cubano, que mi hermano. So he's starting to talk about Cuba and how he arrived. And one of the editors comes out, was Jerry DeFuccio. And he introduced me as mi hermano de Mexico, my brother from Mexico. So he keeps calling me Mr. Proillas. No, I keep saying Aragones. So Gesundheit, he doesn't know what I'm saying, Aragones. So all the time he's keeping saying Proillas to me. He says, no, Aragones. It didn't sound like a name to him. Well, anyway, so I'm showing him my work, and he went inside, and now I'm totally freaked out because they have my cartoons inside, and Antonio's talking about Castro and Cuba and everything. And I hear people laughing, and I assume it has to be my work, Well, anyway, the editor comes out, Alfelsing, says, do you sell your cartoons? Then, of course, he says, well, we have decided to make a page or 2 pages with them and call it the space something, and we can use all the cartoons as an article. It was so logical, and this is great. So they went inside and they come out with a check. And in that time was $100 a page, which other magazines were paying like $6. And I had never seen so much money in my life for a cartoon. Whew. That was great. And they says, well, mi casa es su casa. And I took it literally and never left. But what Jerry said, he says, bring another article. He says, what do you want? He says, well, you have a couple of gags on motorcycle cops. I says, sure. So I go to the hotel where I was staying, which was, I don't want to talk about it. And I sat there all night long, and next morning at 8:30, I'm there with over 40 gags on motorcycle cops. And, oh, Sergio, what are you doing here? Well, here's the article. Whoa, and they go there, and of course they bought it, because they needed only about 7. So, and says, what else you need? And says, no, relax a little. So well, the first issue that came with my article was that it had the 2-page article, it had the marginals and the cover idea, and that was it. And it was like, so and after the art director, of course, said, well, your cartoons will fit in Gourmet magazine and will fit here. And he told me exactly where to go. And as soon as I arrived there, where you publish? Well, I publish with Mad Magazine. Oh, come in. What can we do for you? This is going to publish, of course. And that's what it was. So now it has happened from the time I met Mort Gerber to now. It has happened, what, a month? So I go to a party with John Putnam, and there's Mort Gerber. And I go to Mort, hey, Sergio, how you doing? Have you sold any cartoons? What are you doing? He says, well, I'm working with Mad Magazine, and this I publish in The Post, and all kinds of magazines, Gourmet, and all high-pay magazines. The guy almost fell on the floor. He says, no, it cannot be. And to this day, he's one of my good friends. Every time I go to New York, we have dinner together. And that was it, we started. And from that moment, I never left Mad. Went there every day and learned how to draw, because I don't know how they put those horrible cartoons. But, and also has to happen with the people that you work with. You see the other people and says, from now on, I don't know anything. From now on, I'm going to really learn how to draw. And you draw and you draw and you learn. And that was it. Everybody were very generous, and everybody was very helpful. And never missed an issue yet in 36 years. Yay! And Mad, it was like a family. not only everybody knew each other, I was kind of like the kid in the magazine. I was 24 when we were talking all this. I was 24 years old. And then we started going to trips and meeting everybody and then being your roommates. And it was a fantastic roller coaster. And one of the highlights of the whole thing was when Bill Gaines asked me, he says, well, next trip we're going to Mexico. I said, yeah, can I organize it? You got it, kid. So I went 1 week before and I organized a mat trip. It was great. I organized a bullfight for all of them, and my mother cooked for everybody. In the garden, we make a big paella, and I thought everybody had to drink with porrones. And Bill Gaines was a wine connoisseur. He loved wine, and I did a wine tasting for him, who was kind of like a joke. What happened is that I got all the wines that Mexico produced. And Mexico, unfortunately, has not a very good climate for wines. So some of the wines are not too good. So I bought all the wines and put the good ones in the beginning, like the real good ones, then the mediocre wines, and then the bad ones were tons of it. They're very cheap wine, the table wines. And I put it in a whole long table on the garage of the house, and with white tables with rented glasses and trays with cheese and bread and the whole thing, and the waiters were very well dressed. And Bill Gaines, his eyes went like this, and slowly the guys opened the wine and give him some to taste, and oh, very good. And slowly they deteriorating, but very bad. By the fourth bottle, he just smells and goes, oh. By the end of the line, I mean, he's in hysterics. He goes, oh, you cannot believe the joke, because it's really like put on. But the rest of the guys didn't know. So we have 25 guys going, oh, this is delicious. And by the time the end of the line, everybody's totally blasted. El Chipo wine, oh, what a party. We have great times. And it was sort of like a culmination of everything, having your work family to your real family. That was a great experience. And it went for many years, and still is there.
Sergio, can I?
Sure.
Someone once told me, one of the guys, that on one of the trips on a boat, I think it was, you borrowed a napkin from a waiter, put it up your arm, and you went to the table, you took the orders, and no one even recognized from the whole group.
Yeah, that's true. It was one of the early trips, and we were in Puerto Rico. And Bill Gaines decides that he is going to eat on the expensive restaurant. And in those times, everybody's starting. We don't have that much money. That all foods, Bill will pay for everything on those trips. Africa, India, every place we went, he paid for everything. Airfare, food, and sometimes he even gives us money for expenses. So we are sitting there, and it was then the meal, I remember, $20 the meal, which was a lot of money. This is 1964. So they went with him to this fancy restaurant, and a few of us didn't have the $20, so we stayed there. And I'm looking through the door, through the kitchen, and it's the same restaurant on the hotel. They eating the same food. Just happens to be the fancy restaurant and the normal restaurant, but they eat it exactly the same. Says, this is ridiculous. I'm going to screw up their dinner. So I go to the Metro D and I ask him if I could borrow a uniform. Because we're speaking in Spanish. Sí, seguro. I put myself a uniform and put the white gloves on. And I don't know how to do. And there's a tray that has the things for the salads, the dressings. And I go in, and my joke was, you pay me, this is so expensive that I have to work for my meal. That was my joke. Yeah. So I go there, and so I start serving, and nobody's looking at me. Nobody even says, no, thank you, nothing. No. Just like, waiters don't exist, really. It's totally invisible. So I'm putting all this horrible dressing in all this food and nobody's noticing. And I keep putting in, I remember George Woolrich, the dear cartoonist, and he's talking, and I keep putting this French dressing in something, and he's going, that's enough, and I keep pouring it, like, and he says, that's enough. Oh, I'm sorry. So I take it with my hand, I put it back, and suddenly, you know, those triple takes that it takes, no, that couldn't have happened, you know? Like, no, did he really put a hand in it? So, by the time I'm already 3 more guys, you know, by then the first guy says, hey, what is happening, you know? Well, before he arrived to Bill Gaines, he's been seeing the whole thing, and now he's aware of it, and everybody's standing up, and we're having a very good time, but all the people in the restaurant didn't know that we knew each other. Everybody's running away with the tables, also with their dishes, because they don't know what's happening, you know? So, but we have a few of those tricks that we did to the guys. Some ones work and some don't too good. Yeah. Yeah, we did a few of those things every time to entertain Bill. One of the last things that we did, it was on a cruise. The last cruise that we did, we went to Bermuda. And Bill Gaines was a fan of the Marx Brothers. And one of his favorite scenes was the camarote, the bedroom scene on the ship where all the people start coming in. And he was sitting there, and Dick DeBartolo, which is a connoisseur of movies and stuff, organized everybody. And Bill Gaines is sitting there with his wife, and suddenly there's a knock on the door, and the lady who makes the bedrooms come in with about 10 tons of sheets, and then the waiter comes with glasses, and they start putting in people, you know. And first he doesn't know what's going on. I didn't order any towels, I didn't order any food, and by now we're sending tourists also inside, you know, passing in, and suddenly the little bedroom is getting full. By now he gets the joke. Well, he's laughing, he's sitting in his underwear, he cannot believe what's happening, and there's a guy with a vacuum cleaner, exactly like in the movie, and tourists, what's happening? Oh, you go in, and we're packing this room with things. And then he's a kind of smaller guy, he starts climbing all over the people like Marx, one of like Groucho, whatever he was, on the scene. So it was just a perfect recreation of that scene, and it happened on the thing. I mean, Bill almost got a stroke. We had to tell the people to leave. He couldn't breathe anymore, laughing so hard. You know? And the guy says, oh, this is serious. Send everybody out. He was suffocating, but that was his last trip, and he really went with a good joke. But after 36 trips like that, we did pretty wacko things. The first one was, like probably all of you have read about it, when they went into Tahiti. No, to Haiti. They were going to, I wasn't with Matt then, it was the year I came in, so I didn't qualify for the trip. They went to Haiti. And Bill asked, do we have any subscribers in Haiti? And Gloria Orlando looks and says, yes, we have one, but he just canceled. So he figured out that they should go to this guy and ask him to renew his subscription. You know? So they arrived to Haiti, they are in the hotel, they have dinner, and they pile up in jeeps. They get the address of this guy, and there goes Bill Gaines, and he knocks on the door, and the guy's open, and so, yeah, that's me. He says, please subscribe to this Bill Gaines and Feldstein and all the guys, Jack Davis. And the guy can't believe his eyes, you know, and says, please subscribe. We came all the way for you to renew your subscription. The guy can't believe what's happening, you know. Says, will you promise to subscribe? He goes, yeah. Thank you. And they left. They give him a few mads and pins and stuff, you know. But, that was the Mad magazine. That was a lot of things that went on in the magazine. So besides work, it was a lot of fun. And after Mad, well, still, as a freelance cartoonist, you have to do a lot of things, you know, and animation and comic strips, never did. Comic books, I did a little of everything. I'm still taking commissions when jobs come in, you know. So, yeah. One thing a freelancer never knows how to say is no. No matter what secure your thing is, they get your job, say, sure, when you want it. And you cannot take another job. Yeah, it's a good feeling. I could take 4 hours. So if you have any questions, please talk to me. Ask any questions. If you have anything to know about math, yes.
So, Joe, I remember once you had an assignment and with a tight deadline. You were creating an original paperback. It was all yours. And Gaines knew your working habits, and he put you out on his yacht and took away the boat until you got the drawing out. Could you tell a little bit about that?
Well, that was the guy who created the national anthem, if I'm not mistaken. They took the key away. No. I used to work when they did the pocket books, but no, that really didn't happen. I was in Mallorca, and I got my contract for one of the pocket books, and I decided to stay and spend a whole year over there having a great time. I'm working on a math book. That was a great thing. No, with Bill Gaines, what we did is we had the president of DC Comics. It's a very funny story. Many years ago, let me digress a little. Kinney Corporation was a very large corporation in New York, and they had a lot of car rentals and mortuaries and wine deliveries and pinball machines, and they were getting a very bad reputation. So they decided to kind of legitimize, and they bought Warner Brothers. So now with Warner's, they have a very good company. Everything is very great. So they get rid of all the bad stuff. And among them was one of the mortuaries that they got rid of. So now they have here the president of a mortuary, and they don't know what to do with him. So they says, well, what do we do with the president of the mortuary? So make it president of DC Comics, So they did. So there is this gentleman called Mark Iglesias, who suddenly is walking on the offices of DC, and we are in the restaurant, and somebody introduced him to me, and Mark, and he spoke Spanish. Hey, Mark, what do you do here? He says, well, I'm the president. I said, oh, great, I'm a cartoonist. So we became very good friends. He had a boat, and I had a boat, and I had it in the same marina, and Bill Gaines will come to these meetings with Mark Iglesias to explain them about the business. And it was great because we had great wines, great food, and I will drive the boat. So that was, but it was, I really didn't have to work that hard. It was just.
The idea of a cartoonist working out on a houseboat.
Well, I did that, but my idea was, when you have a dream that you're going to sail in a sailboat, and you want to anchor in a secluded bay, drop anchor, put your canopy, prepare yourself for rum and coke, take a thing and work in your cartoons. That's a dream of every cartoonist, right? So now I buy a boat and I go there. Well, of all the times, or the boat didn't work, or it was raining, or you're off to the cove and it was full of boats putting rock and roll and it wouldn't work. There was never, ever a perfect day. Ever, except once. The boat worked, the day is wonderful, there's nobody on the bay, and I arrive there, I prepared my rum and coke, and the only thing I spend is the whole looking for somebody to see me. And there's nobody there that I can say, hey guys, this is it. And drinking rum and cokes, and now I cannot work because I'm so worried that I have accomplished this, and I ended blood of rum and cokes. Couldn't work. Somebody pick me up here? But no, it's doesn't try to fulfill your fantasies that they never are. The only time, and I blew it, but that was the big dream to have. Those were very good times too. Yes.
Jack has told me that when you're drawing, you never wipe anything out. If there's a line that's out of place, you work it in.
Sure. It's easier than to take an eraser, erase and draw. No, the style lends to it. It's such a loose style that you can have the liberty of just
You also
continue it.
I watch you. You use a pencil. You just take a pen.
When you draw a cartoon, that's when people say you're very fast. Well, sure, I'm very fast when I'm giving a talk. I did a show called Speak Up America, Well, I had to be on camera for 30 seconds. I had a microphone, and people were sending the results of questionnaire that they have done all over the country. I mean, and they didn't know how long it will take to, so they had me there doing a cartoon about the subject. For instance, they were talking about guns, so they will get the pros and the cons, and that's because they tabulate the results. And Sergio, what do you think? I will draw my cartoon, and the guy will tell me, you have 20 seconds. So you have to draw it fast. So these things you draw fast, because once you draw it, it's done. When you give an autograph, you do it fast, because if you draw it slow, the people get very bored. So, but when you're sitting there, speed really doesn't count that much. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of slow. But fast is, yes, for show. Oh yeah, I can draw a whole mural in 2 seconds, but it is just for that. It is bad. It's quick and it's bad. If you're fast, you have to be fast. Don't give a pen to a fast cartoonist before you say go is go, you know. Well, at the San Diego Con, many of the paintings that they are in the rooms, if you take the paintings, there's a lot of cartoons behind them, you know. No, they won't be able to see anything that important. When a real serious artist has to draw a hand, it does have to look like a hand, you know. Well, let me go here. Can you hear? I still haven't unplugged it yet. It's all right. I mean, when an artist draws a hand, well, it has to look like a hand, right? With the 4 fingers, and it has to be realistic. When we draw hands, that's all right, or it's all right, really. Makes no difference. So you can be as fast as you want, and many of us do it all the time with that, because the style lends to the quick thing of the hand. And also, I can draw Alfred Newman faster than anybody, because I've done it 36 years. Every day, you know. But I mean, this is sorry, you know. But this is the same thing that you do over and over, and you don't have even to look at it. I mean, you. So it's fast, sure, but that's the same thing. But even, you know what impressed them the most? This. But that has nothing to do with work. You sit there to work, and you have to put research. And I spend more time looking at books. When I was doing Gru the Wanderer, it's a barbarian comic that I did. I say I did because I just stopped doing it for a while until the industry kind of like solved each other. I spend more time researching things and looking how things look like than many other people, because they know it by heart and I don't. I have very frustrated, I don't know if it happened to other cartoonists, but when they talk about style, I don't think I have a style, because every time I draw an elephant is different than any other elephant. And the guys who draw with style, every time they draw an elephant, it's the same elephant. They have found a solution, like Mordillo. You can, Jack Davis, you close your eyes, and if they put you a Jack Davis elephant, you know it's Jack Davis elephant, no matter what. See, this is an incredible thing. And to me, every time I draw an elephant, I think it's so bad that I have to look at another elephant and draw it again, and I think that now I'm accomplishing something, and I'm drawing a different elephant. And I go back the other day to look at my old comics, like 20 years, and it's the same elephant. I haven't changed anything. It is awful, you know. And I think it's, once you get a style that everybody can recognize, it's like you're not progressing anymore. So I get very frustrated about it.
But Sergio, when you do a page from Gru or a comic book, do you first pencil it? Because they're very complicated.
Yes.
Pencil it first?
Yes. I pencil it twice. Yeah, I don't pencil cartoons that I do. Let's suppose that we're doing a cartoon of, I don't know, a samurai, or a drawing of a samurai. Well, you don't have to. I mean, you just go, draw the face, and and you make any line. Well, that could be part of the shirt, you know. I mean, that could be part of the helmet, even if it's not the right helmet, you know. I mean, whatever you do, you can use as part of the cartoon, and you can draw as fast. And then I think all the cartoonists know that how important it is when you put if you are holding something, you have to be holding it. And a lot of young cartoonists make the mistake that always drawing like the hand closed like this, you know, and there's no space for what they're holding. But if you spend a little time just holding, then you can do it. And probably they trade secrets, you know, but the only thing it is practice. That you do it so often that slowly it works. Yes. When I'm doing Gru, which is the comic, it's about a barbarian. He's very stupid and he's kind of a anti-hero. He never wins. Everything he does is a flop because he doesn't think. He uses violence, and of course he doesn't win. He loses all the time, and has little morals about it on saying how bad he is. And what I do is I write the story first on paper in an 8x10. I divide it in half, and I write the story. Well, first you write the story just like Gru is in a monastery, and then he goes and finds this, and then the villain goes in here, goes in there, and then this is the end. He is in the lake. Okay, from here to here we need that, and then you're writing. And once you have the story kind of like plotted, just like a little, a chart, then you start writing it. And then I write it by numbers. I put like when Gru arrives by hand, so I don't waste it. And then you write the story like that. Once the story is done, I divide this story in the pages I need. If I need 28 pages, 32 pages, I divide this story and says, oh, this could be 1 page, or this could be 3 pages. This text of him arriving that, that'll make it a nice 3 pages or 4 pages. And slowly you have arrived to your composition, to division of pages. Then I take a regular 8x8, you know, the one that has the 3 holes like this. Then I divide it in half and in lines like this. And then very loosely, I make the composition in maybe a large panel or a short panel in pencil. And once I have written the story with no trouble like that, this is already all written and drawn, but not drawn really, the little circles. Then I take the big piece of paper and I drew it with blue line. And then I send it to Mark. And when I arrive to Mark Evanier, he has the text very loose, you know, very bad English. Then I go to Mark and I explain him the story as he's reading this. And then he says this and he says that and blah, 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 blah. Now he writes but he erases what I wrote and writes it correctly. Because in comics, like in television, you cannot do pantomime comics. You cannot do pantomime television. It's a waste of the other half. It's half paper, half talk and half eyes. So it will be a wasted to do it any other way. So now Mark writes it in good English. and then he goes to Stan Sakai. And Stan Sakai is my letterist. He's a great cartoonist too. He does a comic strip called Usagi Yojimbo. And you should have it one day because he's a wonderful artist. And then he does the lettering, and then he comes back to me. And now I pencil it in normal pen. And the reason I did it in blue is the new lines, I know what ones are, and I know what one are the old lines. So I don't make mistakes. But I don't pencil too tight. It's all very loose. I pencil when the hands are touching each other, or if a ceramist is making a pot, I have to put the hand that's inside and the hand out. So it works like that. Little things that they are more complex than others. Or knots, lines that get together on a... And then I start inking and I draw with my pen. But I do this basic position. There's nothing I can stand the cartoon that's out of center, or out of place or bigger than the other one. So you have to pencil that, then you ink free, and I draw with my pen. But it's a long process.
When you were in Mexico and you were starting out with a cartoonist and just drew without the words, did you enjoy that to the point today that you miss it? Or
No, I still do it.
that you could show us that you drew at that time that you really were proud of and showed the people?
I still do it. Mad, all the cartoons that have appeared in Mad has no words. I have never done one cartoon with words. Oh, you want me to draw it? No, of course. Now this, found the pen. When the humor changes from country to country, the humor in other countries, they are less worried about things. Here, everybody's worried about the advertisement. So if you have a newspaper and your cartoon will offend the advertiser, you cannot do it. And on and on. So if you politically have an opinion and your newspaper is from the other political party, you better don't, because that's what the political thing. In Mexico or in other countries, they don't have that type of restriction, so they go a little more freely. So one thing I have changed from there to here, probably I'm now less cruel, will be one of the words to be said. But that type of cartoon I did in Mexico, well, that's another thing. I have published over 20,000 easy cartoons or more, or much more. Just marginals alone I have over that. So let's say 50,000 or more. Then I don't remember any. You know why? It's because the brain, no matter what people say, is a computer. And it stores them in a place where they are not retrievable. It's true. You cannot copy yourself. Once you do a cartoon, I think of a cartoon and I draw it, automatically my brain put it in a place, because I have lost pieces of paper that I wrote in the morning, and I cannot remember one gag. And it's very frustrating. But you don't forget your elements of working. A gag is like building a chair. It's not more difficult like that. You establish a situation that you want to make fun of. You think the absurdity of it. The more you do it, the easier it becomes, and then you solve it. But also, it puts gags that your brain goes, you've seen it before, or somebody else did it, or you've done it before, and it prevents you to do it. So, an opposite of comedians who has the all opposite. They have all the jokes in an immediately retrievable area because they have to use it. So they are talking to an audience, and if they see a guy with a hat, boom, all the jokes with a hat come in, blah, 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 blah. And the guy interrupts and says, your mama, so boom, there goes every joke that they know about a family-related thing. Because it's there to be said. That's how they make their living. And they retain every joke that they have ever heard, because that's how they make their living. See? And for us, it's different. We really establish the gag in a place where we cannot get it, ever. Ever. And it's very frustrating, because I'm saying it's not an excuse. I've been trying to think a gag to draw. And all this time I've been trying to think. And, but I don't so many.
You know, I gotta say, it's true. I was standing with Sergio at the table, and he was looking at the original copies of his, and he said, did I do this? And then he picked up that original, and he said, this is pretty good. Who did that? And he said, oh, I think I did.
Well, I thought it was a good copy, but it is true. But the huh?
That was at the Del Mar Fair.
Yes. We were promoting the San Diego Comic Book Convention and a county fair. That was great.
This morning I went through 20 years of souvenir books, and I found each of the special drawings you did, and I went to Kinko's, and I blew them up, and I put them on the table there, so if you you have trouble remembering, that'll refresh your memory.
But I just
Each drawing
got a few
has
refresh.
1,000 figures in it. It's just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And 11 by 17, they look wonderful.
Yeah.
You can take them with you as a souvenir.
I have albums someplace. I never throw anything
But I
out.
want everybody afterwards to go to this table and look at their work.
Yeah, a lot of people get very impressed when they see a lot of masses of things. It's taking everything and step by step. If you have a project, never see it as a whole, because you'll never start it because it's too much. Like this, I'm going to build a kid car. Well, good luck. But if you buy the kit car, don't think of it as a whole car. Think that first you have to put a chassis, then you have to do a tire, and suddenly the car is done. Believe it, it's as simple as that. If you take every little part, and I have to do a mass cartoon with zillions of people, I don't think of it as a whole cartoon. I think, in MAD, in GRU, I always put a splash page with lots of cartoons all over the place. Well, I never did that page all in one sitting down, because it will have put the whole book out of schedule. So what I do is I lay it out, and every day I add a few little cartoons on it. And what you do is, it depends on the perspective, you add a few here, a few here, a few there, and a few there. And slowly you add more here, and one day they're all together and the whole thing is finished. Somebody calls you on the telephone, you take the big piece and you start talking and filling it up. It's only a good movie you want to watch, you put it on and adding little things, doing commercials, and that whole thing gets done. And you say, oh, how can you do a comic and put all that work? It didn't take that long. Sure, it took long at the end, but it didn't take that long at the end because it took me a whole month to do it. An hour or 2 hours one day, and one day you don't even touch it. But at the end of the month, you haven't break your schedule. And a lot of people says, how can you do a comic every month? Well, it's very simple. I'm not doing a whole comic a month. I'm doing a third of that comic. I'm doing the writing of one, the pencil of one, and the inking of another one. So when you break it like that, the pencil takes much less time. The writing, some stories have taken me 3, 4, 5 months, but you're writing 3 or 4 stories at the same time. Once it's ready, you take it. Because if you want to write, draw, and ink a comic a month, it's impossible. Or it'll be a very bad comic. But if you are doing a series and you're doing a little of everything and advancing, it becomes a breeze. You start writing one and then inking one and penciling one, and slowly becomes that you ink a page a day comfortably because it's 32 pages, and that's it. The rest is just for having fun. Yes?
Do you do your marginals same size?
No, the marginal is a different process. These are little single gags. And those I think every day. I put in my pockets little piece of paper. And I spend half a day thinking only, which is very hard on the family members because they see you doing nothing. And they say, Sergio, you're doing nothing. Can you help me here? He says, I'm working. It is the hardest thing to explain to people that you're working. So I cannot work in my studio. I work in the park. I work in the coffee house. I take my car and I go as far as nobody knows me, and I sit in a coffee house and I work there. And I don't do anything. And you write, and you think of how to build the furniture, and you draw it, and then you think a gag, and you think how to solve the world, and many things. And then at the end of the day, then I go and sit down and ink. I draw them, if the marginal is let's say, this size. What I do is I do it double and a half. 1, 2 and a half. Which it's about this big. And the reason I do it that small is because if I drew them larger, I will start putting a bow tie and a little chain and a little hat, and if it's a cowboy, I will put a couple of guns. But if I draw them small, I cannot add anything. Because when they get reduced, they have to be readable. So I have to draw them small, which gets havoc in your eyes, and every year your glasses get more prescription. But you have to, the marginals I have to draw small. Yes, young?
I was responsible for scanning the last 12 issues of GRU
Ah,
in college.
Oh, great.
And I used to love to look at the backs with all the little sketches. And I think issue 5 had about 15 different versions of your statue drawn with blue pencil.
Oh.
And I was wondering if the stuff on the backs came first or after the pages were done.
Well, what happened is, can you imagine every comic book page that you draw is an 11 by 17 good Strathmore that nobody uses for anything except to put a copyright sign, you know. So I use it to work. So all my back of my pages is my rehearsal paper. And I sketch there, I write there, and I learn how to draw there. If I'm drawing a character, I turn the page over and design it here, and then I draw it in this page. Because it's
I luckily got to scan the first one, and after I saw those, I fought to do the last every month. Okay, I'll scan through.
it's just a waste of paper, so I use it a lot to draw things. Yes?
In Mad Magazine, every month it said your section of the magazine, so I said Mad Look at Camping, Mad Look at Golfing, and Mad Look at Bowling. And I've read Mad Magazine over the years, and I was just always wondering, have you repeated subjects?
No.
No. Okay.
We change them names. Camping, like camping will become summer, or summer sports, or dating under a tent, under the moon, very hot, or whatever. But no. No, I try not to. Like right now, I'm doing a mad look at pregnancy. Well, we have to become modern, and the next one is a mad look at condoms. So I'm running out of subjects.
Sergio, you're really the world's ambassador of goodwill. All over the world, you're well known and well liked. I know you go to the Italian comic conventions and the French ones.
Yeah, they pay for it.
Tell us a little bit about the
Well, like in the last 10, 15 years, after the San Diego Comic Book Convention was started, everybody started coming here from all over the world, and they decided it was a great way to have the readers and editors and things. So Europe started doing the same thing. So they have their conventions. So they always invite people, cartoonists, to show up so people can get their autographs and go to the conventions. And I'm fortunate I speak a few languages, so I'm always get invited. You know? And they pay for everything. They pay for the fare, the hotel. And Italy has one in Lucca, which is wonderful. And France have two that they are delightful, one in Angoulême, and one in Belgium has one in Charleroi. Canada has one in two. All over the place, and it's wonderful. Turkey had a great festival. And Malaysia has one. Korea. Many countries have festivals, and they are all based, thank Shel Dorf, who was really the creator of the San Diego Con. He was the originator, and now all the world is doing that. Yeah. But
Could I say about the early days of the Comic Con, the most fun for me was when you and I gave out the Inkpot Awards. Do you remember that?
yeah, what happened is, this is Shel. Let me tell the story. Tell me the story. Yeah,
Gail Messick said in her speech that afternoon that she kept drawing Brenda Starr with about a half hour before she gave birth, right? Her first child. She was still drawing just before she gave birth. So as we were up on the stage and we're giving, I'm announcing that Dale Messick is the winner of the Inkpot. Sergio is drawing like crazy, and he shows her laid out on the table. At the top half, she's got a drawing board, drawing Brenda Starr. The bottom half, the doctor's pulling out the page. This in about 10 seconds.
well, no, this is, do I remember? I'm there as a guest at the San Diego Con having a great time, and the doctor says, I'm giving the awards tonight. You want to give me a hand? Sure. Says, can you maybe make a couple of drawings? Sure. And we go there, and it says, whatever I said, you have to make a drawing of each of the members. I don't know who he's talking about. I don't know who he's presenting. My adrenaline went like, whoo! And suddenly, all the cartoonists that I respect and adore are there. All the young people, everybody's there, zillions of people. And your mind works I don't know what it is. It's like somebody inject you with the weirdest stuff because suddenly you are the brightest, suddenly you are acute, you cannot miss. And whatever he said, I drew so fast and right to the pot, and everybody went crazy. And it was like the nerves of how you do this to me. And it worked by thing, but it was like, oh, when I get shelled after this, you know. But it was awful. At the same time, it was probably one of the great moments that you put in a challenge like that, and it worked, you know.
Back to you. We are most grateful for people like you, because if you didn't come to the con, nobody would show up.
Oh, no. The comic book conventions have changed a lot through the years. Many of the magazine cartoonists and syndicated cartoonists sell millions more than any given comic book artist. The only difference is that comic book artist has a thing called fan. And the fan is a very dedicated person who collects the work, reads it. And the disadvantage of syndicated people is that everybody loves their work, they buy the books, but they don't care the least to go to meet other people who like the same work. Because on a syndicate, you get a doctor, you get a truck driver, you get a mechanic, you get a cartoonist, you get a student, you get the whole gamut of people in the whole world. So there's no any relation, that fan thing. And one day the National Cartoonists Society wanted to organize a comic book convention in New York. It says, well, if so many people go to see the comic book artists, we should have one for the syndicate strips. And there was a gentleman who lived in New York who organized comic book conventions, Phil Suling. And he said, I don't think it's going to be a good idea. And it wasn't. We were there, the whole podium, when we were introduced, we were they were the creme of la creme of cartoonists, from Otto Soglo to Mort Walker, to name it. And there were 11 people at the audience, you know. I mean, it was dreadful. But this is the great thing that comic book has a very selected, not even selected, a total close fandom that follows and go together and trade comics and meet the artists and seek autographs and want to be cartoonists, and they become cartoonists. We all have a letter that somebody sent us when they were a kid, or we have sent a letter to our famous guy and they still have that letter, you know. So it's a group of mutual admiration between. And with the syndicate guys, everybody loves them. The proof is that when they put a book out, it sells by the millions. And a comic book sells, well, in the hundreds of thousands, if that. Now, much less than that, because the industry is not in the best of times. But the conventions change from here to Europe also. In Europe, the conventions are mostly the publishers putting a booth and displaying what they are, the wares of that year, and that publisher invites the cartoonist. And then you sit on a table with your publisher, and then you sign only books that the kids buy from the publisher. And that's it. And there's no trading, except outside the comic book convention, a lot of the kids are trading books. Here, now it has changed a little, but basically it's people with tables trading in comics. Old comics, new comics, and some of the publishers showing their wares and giving a few things away, and cartoonists fighting for space on a table to some that once they start trying to make a buck selling sketches and things, you know. But it's a different feeling, different people also that goes to them. In Europe, the whole town goes there. The whole kids, schools. Here is mostly people who know about the convention. Everybody goes there every year. They know their fans. They know where they want to go. They trade. It's more of a trade thing. In Europe, it's an occasion. It's a book fair, and the whole town goes. The parents take their kids, and they get upset because everything is nude ladies all over. Oh, don't look at this. These are not comics. This is oh, dude. But it's the same thing all over. Parents always complain. Yes, Paul.
Yeah, Greg Evans has an important question to ask.
Yes, Paul.
Paul wants to know what kind of pen you use.
Ah, the secret. Well, with the marginals I use rapidograph because the line is even, so it doesn't distract. It's small, it's even. That. In glue, in the beginning, I used to dip like a Gillot 127 and start drawing, but I realized that I couldn't go very fast. So I put India ink on my fountain pens, and they dry on me, of course, but Pelican never did. And I used an ink then called FW, no? Steig. Remember the cartoonist Steig? His brother making an ink. FW ink, you know, that nobody uses it. FW. Yeah, and it's a great ink. It was a great ink, and it has ammonia on it. So when you put it in your pens, sort of like it doesn't coagulate, and also whoa. And the Pelican didn't coagulate, so I can draw with two different sizes of pens. One thing, the extra fine point, they become fine, then it becomes medium, they become broad, and then you throw it away. But slowly the pens get ended, but they last you 5 years. And suddenly they changed the formula of the inks. Now they make acrylic inks, because they don't make them for cartoonists, believe me, they make it for engineers, and they like other type of utensils. So that ink is very bad. So I called the factory and tell them it's clogging my pens. Says, well, we're using acrylics now. Says, well, I don't need acrylic. So says, well, don't tell anybody, but there's an ink called Badger, who they use on airbrushes, and it's the same old formula. So Badger, it's an excellent ink for fountain pens. You know, it's for airbrush. It's permanent, very bright, and fits on fountain pens. That's what I use.
And then what kind of pen do you use?
Pelican fountain pens. Beautiful fountain. You go loaded with India ink, and you draw until it dries, so you don't have to be dipping in.
Do you look for a particular brand?
Well, now it's ridiculous. Now people collect pens. The pens used to cost $40. Now they cost $1,200. Wait a minute, it's the same pen just with a gold nib and with a gold cover and with some dragons around it. The people are going crazy. But they collect pens now. You know. So the pen that it was $20 now is 40-some, which is the one I used to use. You know. But, you have to spend like 100 and some for a good one. But what's that pen that has the Mont Blanc? Works for nothing. You know. Just for good normal ink, but not for India ink. Well, anyway, that's what I use. But for instance, I know cartoonists, they use pencils, and it reproduces wonderfully. And their comic strips, you know, and it looks great. A pencil. Anything that fits your style, use. Don't use what other people use. And if anybody's starting here to be a cartoonist, use a brush. Learn how to use a brush. A brush is magic. A brush gets thin, gets thick, lasts forever, does incredible things, but nobody wants to spend a year using it or learning how to do it. Work with whatever you have, but learn to use a brush. You'll never thank me enough. Once you know how to use it, it's a magic pen. I don't know how to use it. I'm too old to start. If I was an honest person, I will start to learn how to use a brush. But it is a magic tool. The Japanese, imagine how they use it. No. The old-timers all use brush.
Real question. Did you say you researched before you drew pictures?
Yes.
Where did you go?
I have all the National Geographics. It's called the library. But that's my private thing. I don't research for comics. See, I mean, for cartoons. The important thing of a cartoon is the joke. Forgive me guys, but one of the best cartoonists in the world is Larson. His Far Side is probably the most incredible cartoon ever appear anyplace, because I don't know where, you see, when you look at a gag, I know where he come from, you know, I mean, mentally, how he arrived there, or how you arrive to a solution. Not a copy, but you know, how you arrive to something. every time I see one of his cartoons, I crack up. I don't know where the hell he got that idea from. How you arrived to that illogical, and he throws me on the floor. And he doesn't draw that well, but he's a master cartoonist. His gags are perfect and his drawings are perfect for the joke. And he's wonderful. So really the drawing is not that important. It's the joke. Because even if Picasso draws a bad joke, it's still a bad joke, you know, no matter what you do with it. So the joke is the important thing, not the art. The art is fine for an illustration, but the joke has to be good.
You have a parting shot, Sergio? Maybe one little gem or something?
I don't know. Any questions? Anything that you want to know? Because I don't really have a Gru. Sure. Do you have another pen besides this? Oh, no, I have one.
Who has a big marker?
Yeah.
Well, I had a quick question while you're waiting. Do you actually set aside some time where you sit down and by yourself every day to think and write?
Yeah, half of the day.
Half a day, every day?
Every day, half of the day. The research is so important for the comic book because you have to place a comic book in a place. It has to make you feel like you are there. You wanna to, if the story is on the jungle, you want it to look like a jungle. If it's in the desert, you want it to look like it's in the desert, and the architecture is in the desert, and the animals are part of the desert, and the people who do the pottery is part of the desert. You cannot put pottery that will fit on the jungle, you know, it's an anachronism. But in comics, even though nobody sees it, it is there, you know. Gru is a character, kind of like, has a bulbous nose like this, you know, and 2 eyes. And one of the stupid things that you do with a barbarian is, in the samurai, usually you carry your swords on the side for a very logical reason. When somebody attacks you and you're having dinner, you go like this, you already cut the guy in half, no matter in what position you are, see? But Gru, being so stupid, he carried them on his back, you know? Because every time somebody attacks you, he has to go like this, you see? Which leaves you completely open to murder. You know? So every time you see a comic book with somebody with the swords in the back, the guy doesn't even know where he is, you know, because they look very good graphically, you know, but I mean, don't expect to kill anything. And this little chubby barbarian walks around and has a dog called Ruferto. And Ruferto is my dog. He's a Queensland heeler. And the reason I gave him a dog is because if he's so stupid, how come all the time he's thinking? Because he's by himself, so I have to have some dialogue. So he has all these balloons as well. If he thinks he's very intelligent, so he has to be somebody next to him to compensate. And says, but if I put another human, he will be killed within 3 pages. Or he will become the hero of the story, and Gru will become the second banana. So the only character that you can put in a continuity with somebody very stupid is a dog. Because the dog will love his master no matter what. The dog doesn't know. Hitler's dogs love Hitler, you know what I mean? So it really doesn't make a difference to a dog. So I put a dog there that we love Gru, but now through the years the dog thinks, so how come he doesn't get rid of Gru? What happened is that all through an issue where I introduced the dog, I had Gru trying to eat him. And kept the dog as for food for later, you know, like, hey, I'll eat him later. Everything he did to get him, it was rescuing him from something. Or whatever he gave him, he didn't like, it was the best thing for the dog. So the love thing that Gru is the best no matter what, you know. So it was the only reason to give him, and through marked dialogue, has to make it more dumb and more brighter, you know, so they have worked terrific now. You know, so it's been a lot of fun. We did 140 some issues, which also is the longest comic drawn by the same people Because with the companies, they use different artists and different writers. But yeah, it's one of the longest runs.
Does your dog love you?
Unconditionally. He sees me. What does he know? I don't even feed him. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Great. My second honor of the night is to present good friend Sergio with the coveted, highly coveted, Southern California Cartoonists Society mug. And I'm just sorry that we don't have the bars closed. We have rum and Coca-Cola in it.